don't use it, you're gonna use this.
All right.
I got my book. I'm not even trying.
All right, good evening, everyone. It is Thursday, February 23rd. It is 6:30-ish p.m. This is the regular board meeting of the Olentangy Schools Board of Education. I'll call the meeting to order. Mr. Jenkins, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Lester.
Here.
Dr. Daberco.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Dr. Wise.
Here.
Dr. Wallach.
Here.
All right, would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'll now move to the approval of the agenda. And as you may have observed, we're transitioning from a traditional paper agenda to a software package called Board Docs. And so we're working out the kinks, but long-term it's the right answer because it kind of automates a lot of the process around minutes and recording votes, et cetera. So with that, I will accept the motion to approve the agenda as written with no amendments, please.
So moved.
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
All right, any discussion on the agenda? All right, seeing none, please call the roll. Mr. Jenkins, when you're
Mr.
ready.
Lester.
Yes.
Dr. Daberco.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Dr. Wise.
Yes.
Dr. Wallach.
Yes.
All right, we've got the board president's report. Let me start with the superintendent search. So tonight, we have a discussion item. We've decided as a board to move ahead with the ESC of Central Ohio to help us with the search process for a new superintendent. And so we've got Dr. Wade Lucas, who I will introduce at the appropriate time, is going to talk to us about, in general, what's the search process going to look like, what's the calendar look like, timing, et cetera. And then we will go back as a board in executive session and get into further detail around the process and timing and expectations, et cetera. One thing I think is important to note, because of our existing relationship with the ESC of Ohio, there is no separate contract to approve to choose them as our search partner. It's part of our existing financial relationship with ESC, who does a number of things for the district in terms of substitutes and staffing, et cetera. So it's really an opportunity to leverage an existing investment with a partner to help us with a search rather than investing additional dollars with a separate search firm. And as we'll get into it in that discussion, Dr. Lucas brings a wealth of knowledge in terms of superintendent search, et cetera, that I think will be very helpful with us in this process. So we will move forward with the ESC of Central Ohio as a search partner. We'll talk about the process in our discussion item and then again in executive session. In addition, on the agenda tonight is a TIF agreement from Orange Township. We've got two guests here that, again, I'll introduce at the appropriate time. That is a good opportunity for the district to partner with one of our townships on a jointly an aligned project in terms of alignment of interest, in terms of getting a property developed and meeting some of the needs of the district. So we will look forward to that discussion as well. So with that, I'll open up to other board members to know, in particular, Mr. Dabercow has some comments on funding he wants to make when he's ready. And if anyone else has comments, I'll see if anyone else.
We did have
Brandon, you go ahead.
we did have the last meeting of, or not the last meeting, but our most recent meeting of the Student Wellbeing and Mental Health Committee last week. We're making good progress on the initiative that we're looking at. In addition, we had Deanna Brandt, who is the Executive Director of the Delaware Morrow Mental Health and Recovery Services Board, come in and speak to us about some of the challenges that they're seeing in this area. A lot of them around staffing and getting good people to come in and be able to provide support services. We think that this, especially one of the committee's recommendations was to pursue licensure as a community behavioral health agency, which is moving forward. And we think that's really going to help elevate this partnership and bring in some additional people here and ensure some consistency of services. So she was very excited about it. We're excited about it, and we look forward to presenting some additional recommendations as we go on.
Terrific. Dr. Tabarko?
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. School Advocacy Committee update. Implementing fair school funding plan is tax relief for everyone in the district. It's important to us, and that's what we're advocating for because it impacts everybody. On Tuesday of this week, 2/21, Superintendent Rafe, Treasurer Jenkins, myself, and a representative from our legislative liaison met with State Senator Matt Dolan, who's chair of the Senate Finance Committee, and Representative Jay Edwards, who is chair of the House Finance Committee. In both meetings, Mr. Rafe very skillfully explained the perspective of Olentangy, which included a reminder to each legislator about how the growth we had experienced was not fairly reflected in what we received from the state in our formula because of the caps. He emphasized that the fair funding plan is tax relief for everyone in our district. Mr. Jenkins did a great job working through the details of the supposals, we'll call them. Supposals is if we do this, how does that impact fair funding and how does that impact what you get, meaning us as a district, that were considered by legislators or they said were being talked about. Mr. Jenkins reinforced that fully funding fair school funding while implementing rollbacks leaves Olentangy in a worse position than we are now, and I'll let you talk about that more on your part of the evening. Mr. Rafe also met with Senator Brenner and Representative Jordan. I can let you talk about that.
Same.
I'm sorry?
Same
thing.
It was a repeat of what you saw the day before.
Okay. The only difference is they can't help the Guardians with a hitting catcher.
Right.
So,
Correct.
one area of agreement was clear. All the legislators realized the importance of fair school funding, and most importantly, they voiced their approval of the idea that no public school in Ohio should ever get less than a non-public school. And I left the meeting feeling like each legislator was committed to hearing our perspective and working towards a solution. So the Advocacy Committee is going to continue to work with leaders at the state and local level to make sure they know the importance of fair school funding for every family in Olentangy. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
Okay.
I do have to say that was a really good idea. I can't remember if I had it or if Dr. Lucas, but I think it was Dr. Lucas, actually.
That line about fair school funding?
Yes, that was his.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
My only observation and comment would be, in the 13 years I've been on the board, our legislative parties have always vehemently agreed with our position, but when it came time to vote, they seemed to not necessarily deliver. And so I hope this time, not only do they talk about it, but they actually deliver with some votes and some success.
It's a great point. I think the important thing to recognize, what makes this different and from my perspective than other legislative cycles is, in the past, they were talking about how big of a piece of pie each of us gets, and there was always a winner and a loser. I think Mr. Rafe did a great job of explaining that we're not looking to create losers from our position. It should be a win-win for every school district. So I am cautious as well, but if the pie gets bigger, we can meet student needs, and that's the goal.
I agree. So thank you for that work. Okay, anything else from the board? All right, now we'll go on to our presentation items. The first one is a construction update. So we've got, I'm sorry, here. Bruce Runyon from Fanning Howie and Bill Sullivan, two people that are not strangers to this group, have done great work over the years, and look forward to hearing your update.
Good evening. It's nice to be in front of the board again. Appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and see you all again. And before I get started, I just wanted to say from everyone at Fanning Howie a thank you and congratulations to Mr. Rafe on his recent announcement. So thanks for that opportunity. So we're going to go through fairly quickly because you know this building pretty well. I'm going to talk about elementary number 2. That's going to break ground here in about a month. I also have with us today Bill O'Sullivan and Clay Keith of Robertson Construction, our construction manager. So any questions that you want to throw at us about this or what Bill's going to review on Berlin Middle School and its progress here, we're all here to take care of that for you. So elementary number 2 is based off of Shale Meadows. That has been a pretty big success for the district. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, and I'm not certainly going to go through the building because you're all familiar with it. We're going to show you some of the changes and a little bit of what we're doing as we move forward with it. What you're not familiar with, what a lot of people aren't, is where this site is and where what we're doing with it. So this is a 20-acre site that is on the southwest corner of Pyatt Road and Peach Blow Road in Berlin Township. It's about 20 acres. Peach Blow Road is here along the, oh, there it is. Peach Blow Road has disappeared. That's not going to show up. Can you hear me if I do this?
Yeah, it's
great. Thank you. Peach Blow Road is right here along the top of the road. Pyatt Road right here. Because Peach Blow Railroad tracks right here, so that's a natural boundary. And that forced a lot of things to Pyatt Road because of the proximity of the tracks, safety of cars. A lot of work has gone into this with our officials at Delaware County in regards to this from an engineering, from a traffic standpoint. And so both of our entries are here on Pyatt Road. There's going to be a future, if you talk to Delaware County, they'll say in the not too distant future roundabout there at Pyatt Road and Peach Blow Road. So that's already been taken into consideration with the design as well. And we will have a separate entry here that is for the main parking and student drop-off, and a separate bus access and staff access here. And then after hours, both of those combined for parent access for anything after hours and parking with that. The same sort of amenities that we've had at our elementary schools for years. The building footprint again matches Shale Meadows. We have a nicely developed playground. We have a softball field for basically the school and community activities. And then again, as we said, the parking and the bus lot drop off there with it. A couple of things happening the board needs to be aware about as we're going through this. This right now is out to bid for the site work. So our costs aren't in yet, but lots of off-site utilities had to be brought here. That's a shared cost, and Mr. Gordon did a great job of negotiating a lot of those costs with the developer. This was a developer gifted site. And so we have off-site costs for sanitary sewer. We'll also have some off-site costs, not nearly as much for Delco water. And we have some road widening that we have to do from about the north of our north driveway to the south of our south driveway to accommodate what they need to have the schools do for us to get in and out of that. We'll find out here in the next month or so where our dollars are ending up with that. There will be other things that are coming back to that. The road widening is going to be a separate package because of the type of work, so that'll be coming to the board in the near future as a separate issue, so we wanted to make sure you were aware of that moving forward with it. It'd be a good site. The thing that this site has is this is in the upper tier of the number of parking spaces that we've been able to develop in elementary school sites pretty much throughout the district. And this is probably the best site that we've had in terms of being able to stack cars for parent pickup and drop-off on the site. So that is a big improvement that we've been working quite a bit on here.
So maybe before we get off the map of the
Sure.
property, and it's probably a recency bias question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Given the proximity to the railroad, do we know who runs the railroad? And are there additional measures we should be taking to make sure that what happened in Palestine doesn't happen there?
I think that's a very good question. We need to probably go back and see what we can do as anything in regards to that. That would be extra protection for that. The buffer, the natural buffer there is there's no planned activity space or access space to those railroad tracks. And while it looks like the building's close there, it's still 300 feet plus. And some of that was just dictated by where we had to put things for utilities, where we had to put things for the natural terrain of the site. But Mr. Gordon and I will make sure we go back and see if there's anything else we can do that may heighten our sense of security in regards to that. Okay?
Can you also, Mr. Bryan, you have more questions?
No, go ahead.
Crossing the street there, is it I don't know the neighborhood very well. I'm looking up top at the north, it looks like a neighborhood. Dollar to Donuts, the one at the top right would be a neighborhood eventually, right?
Top right, it may be, there's development. These are only scattered houses right now. It is
Okay.
not all an organized housing development. And there is talk of development to the north of Peach Blow Road, but thus far, that is not a planned development that we had any responses to. The northeast corner of that intersection is the church.
Yeah.
And to the east of us here is Old Estates, Oldfield Estates is right here. That is the most dedicated neighborhood, and that is across the street, across Pyatt Road from us. We are putting in, as the school district, the first pieces of a pedestrian bike path along there. That will tie in someday to whatever the county chooses to do here with the roundabout. And then we have pedestrian access coming up and then tying into the pedestrian access to the playground to this. And then the developer that gifted this site someday will develop this to the south. So we've already built in and tied in a pedestrian connector to our property line that the developer then can pick up to bring the kids to that if you ever have a walking policy with this building.
So there'll be a way for the folks in the neighborhood to the east to get across that street? What's that
now-
speed limit? Is that,
Right now, no, and that is something that would have to be controlled by the county. That is something that the school district is not able to do. It's a county road, and we're not able to go off-site property to do that.
That property's connected to Arrowhead. They walk into Arrowhead,
okay.
Oldfield Estates.
Okay, we'll think about that more. So one more question. I'm not sure how close it is to other bigger places it could handle for an evacuation site building on your, because I think as part of a plan, every elementary would have an evacuation site. Where would that look like for this school?
That, anything off of Pyatt Road getting you north and south, so if you would go north, you could get into the New Berlin Middle School, Berlin High School, and Cheshire to your north by about a mile to each one of those. To the south and slightly east is Arrowhead Elementary School, and that is again about a mile to the south and east of us. And then if you go further and you'd have to go back over the railroad tracks, then you would be about 2 miles to Shanahan Middle School.
Very impressive, thank you.
So we kind of end up with a cluster of elementaries,
Yes.
similar to how we're in Powell with kind of some of the elementaries over there. So it's not uncommon for us to have 3 elementaries within sight of each other.
No, I will tell you, though, that there was a lot of hard work on the district's part, on the administration's part, on securing this site. Developer sites are getting harder and harder to come by, and a lot of good work on the administration's part to get that to happen. Any other questions on the site? Okay. Didn't expect all those, but there you go. I'll promise I'll be quicker here on the plan. And I'm going to do the same thing. So the plan is Shale Meadows' plan with some modest improvements. A lot of improvements happened to Shale Meadows when it was designed, from elementary 15 to Shale Meadows, which was elementary 16. We went back in last summer as this started. One of the first meetings that Mr. Gordon and I had was with Dr. Fetty and with Principal Ganegi of Shale Meadows to say, how has this worked? And the biggest thing that you wanted to do when you did Shale Meadows was to increase academic space, and that was a big hit. Now, obviously, Shale Meadows at that point had only gotten through its first year, but it was a big hit the first year. It served the purposes that the community and that the school district wanted it to do. There were a couple of small issues that we talked about that could be improved, and so they've been improved in this plan. One of the biggest was increasing and making even better the security vestibule that had been added and redesigned in that, adding more viewing glass to that for the reception area of the office to be able to see into the security vestibule. There were 2 new SLC classrooms that were added at Shale Meadows. That's been a big hit. What wasn't a big hit was the noise that the 5th grade lockers created. So there was an ask to, can we move those away from the SLC? So we reorganized some space and brought those lockers down more where the 5th graders would be housed now. That will be a good improvement. Modified slightly some of the small group rooms to align better with some of the other small group rooms that are in this area. fine-tuned some of the upgraded electrical, mechanical, and technology systems, with special attention to making sure that we could get the equipment that we need as soon as we could get it, and not get caught up in long lead items if we could avoid it. A little bit in that in just a second. And then incorporating upgraded solid vinyl tile flooring throughout. That's the no wax flooring, so from an operational standpoint, that's going to be a big improvement here. And Mr. Gordon said, just tell them that's the standard from now on, and that's great. One of the things that, if you remember, you approved the first GMP for this several months ago. This building went out to bid, and you started the process of obtaining those materials a good 6 months ago now. We're very fortunate that we did. The supply chain issues have not ebbed. Where we heard last fall that we'd be, or late fall, that a chiller would be about 52 weeks away, which was almost great, has expanded even further now. It's now about 60 weeks from what we were just told. It still works. That's going to fit our timeline, but you've probably got out 6 months sooner at least than you ever did on any of the previous elementary schools, all due to supply chain. So again, good advanced timing and foresight on the school district's part to allow that to happen. The site now is just catching up, if you will. And then just real quick to remind you, some of the images, and these were all shale meadows, again, just a year old, and what the building is, the bright colors that kids is. The media center has been a big hit. That was a completely redesigned media center, and then if you remember, the last 2 years you've gone back and updated the rest of the elementary school media centers in this same design approach. And just a couple of spots, this is the maker space in that media center. The expanded, or not expanded, but the gymnasium and the operable partition into the cafeteria area. Very colorful, big, open, bright spaces for the kids. And then the playground, and again, this was kind of the flagship playground that then you went back the last 2 years and upgraded the playgrounds at all 15 of the original elementary schools as well. So it's been a big success. From that standpoint, Elementary 17 is going to have those extra improvements, and we're chomping at the bit here to get started. We're scheduled right now to start April 3rd, I believe, and we'll be bringing the bids of the GMP number 2 to you in the month of March for your approvals, and that's my update. Any questions you've got from that? Okay. Then I'm going to turn this over to Bill O'Sullivan of Construction Analysis, your owner's rep, and he's going to talk about where we're at with the middle school. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us tonight. This is always fun. I'm going to wax a little philosophical here. We moved into the district 37 years ago, and our children are Olentangy lifers, as are Bruce Running's children, by the way. And our one daughter went to Olentangy High School as a kindergartner because we're waiting for Wyandotte to be built. I bring that up just to say what we've seen and been a part of this family for so long, and what all of you and all your predecessors have done has been tremendous as far as successful growth and that kind of thing, and it's all based on strong decisions, great decisions made along the way. Back on construction, one of the huge decisions that was made was to make repetition part of the program. That has paid untold dividends to the district and saved untold millions of dollars through the years. Fanning and Howie's documents are typically extremely strong and thorough, and continue to get stronger just because they continue to take all the things we learn in all the repetitions, build them in the documents, and they keep getting better and better. That makes a difference to bidders. It helps costs, it helps schedule, and it just makes people want to work at Olentangy. So let me start with the slides here. Okay. That would make it seem like this is all very simple, and it's all very exciting, and we never have any problems. Well, it is exciting, but we do have problems. So I would like to go through the middle school and some of the things that were overcome to get that done. What I've done is set up just key elements that have occurred and what happened along the way. This shows, and this is all supply chain related for the most part, as Bruce touched on. We had it in the beginning of that job. We've got it looking ahead. This is roofing. We learned fairly early on that insulation was going to be a problem to get. And I think many of us who are either near or around the industry have found that's a problem. It was a significant delay. So the problem we had was, how do we get going? A critical piece of this was to get piping going through, past the mechanical room, down a certain portion, and get the piping run through the building over the winter. The problem was there was ductwork over that couldn't get wet, so we couldn't do that in the rain. Vapor barrier, which was part of the system, could be put down, but how would that work? That was a test we did, and ended up working out that the vapor barrier went down, ductwork could be run, piping could be run, and it kept the job going through the winter. It was a critical decision and really made a difference in getting going. Secondly, if you can see, the blue bar is the original roofing schedule. The green is what it actually took to put it in place. So Robertson pushed hard on the subcontractor, and to their credit, they were able to get the subcontractor to man up and actually decrease the amount of time it took to do the roofing. So it got us back virtually on track with the roof after some heartache. And thinking, well, okay, well, that's nice to have that out of the way. Unfortunately, it wasn't the last problem. As we headed into spring, we had known already, but the chiller was going to be substantially late. And over the summer, interior work had to occur, drywall work had to occur. We needed ways to be drying the building and doing that kind of work. Without that, we'd be virtually dead in the water. Again, to Robertson's credit, they pushed on the supplier, and they made available temporary cooling units that were brought out and got us through the summer with temporary cooling so that critical work could continue. The unit stayed on site until the green dot when the final unit came out and got hooked up, which was near the end of summer, but still was effective. So that was significant bullet number 2, virtually dodged. And then we thought, well, we're probably done with big problems, and not quite. We had a real surprise with switchgear. That became a significant delay, and hoping to have it where the blue dot is in May so that equipment could be run, chiller that we didn't have could be run, but other things, when starting up heating and later in the summer, could be run as well. Again, to Robertson's credit and their subcontractor, there was a job the subcontractor had that they could pull switchgear from, bring it to the job. Fanning and Howie checked it out, said, yes, this can work temporarily. It was brought in, set up, and then finally final switchgear was installed in October, as it turned out. So you look at all these things and you say, wow, you know, if we add up all those months, what a disaster it could have been. The good news is the contract completion date of mid-March of this year is going to be met. And that, I really have to give kudos to Clay Keith and Robertson and his team, and Bruce and Fanning and Howie and his team, and Jeff Gordon, absolutely. It's just been a great team effort, and quite a process to go through. So I'd like to just now take a second to show everybody the building they probably already know, but just walking quickly through, starting, let's say, the bus entry and coming through the back door. To the left is the music wing, to the right is the lockers, and it's just a pretty lit main corridor that goes through our middle schools. We go up through in the gym on the one side, and these are actual pictures right now where we stand. That's the commons, flooring going in and nearing completion now. And media center, we got some protection down and a little bit of touch-up to do, but overall in pretty good shape. Collaboration space in one of the academic wings, and life skills lab. And then walking in the main entry, looking up at the bridge or whatever we call that, and then just turning around and looking out the front door to the front parking lot. So, in a nutshell, that's the story, and I appreciate your time and want to thank you. Any questions or thoughts?
Just want to add, it's been a real joy being on the facilities committee and getting to see, you know, the work that's going on each month, and just the care and attention that you all put in this work. You know, saying, you know, oh, there's temporary switchgear here, there's something, it makes it sound like it's easy, and I know it's not. And I know just all of the hard work you put in, and it comes from this place of being, you know, people who are lifers here, people who care about the community and want to make it work. So we as a community, we as a district are indebted to the work that you all are doing, I can't wait for the community to see this new school. We took a tour just a couple weeks ago. It is beautiful. I think the most telling thing is we had some teachers from other schools. A teacher from Hyatt's was there, which is very similar, but just all of the improvements. They're like, this is amazing. I wish we had this. So I think the community is going to love it, and it's really a testament to just the hard work that you put into it, that you're able to get it on time and make a great new environment for our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? Thank you, Bill. All right, our next, presentation item is summer programming. Vince Titilio, Erica Boone, and Marty Argenbright.
So good evening. Thanks for having us. My name is Vince Titilio. I'm the curriculum director. I'll let everyone else introduce themselves. I feel like there's a couple other people who might, I think, speak with Marty also, so we can let them introduce themselves as we go. So tonight we're here to do a overview of our summer programming. And the reason and the timing of this is because over the next few months, there'll be many action items that come to your table related to those programs. And we want to make sure you understand what those are, what the purpose of them, those programs are. So I will go ahead and start with summer school. And before I start with summer school, I want to acknowledge that I honestly don't do any of the work with summer school I'm here talking about. I want to acknowledge Karen Sidoti, the principal of Olentangy Academy, Dr. Jen Alward, the principal of Oasis, and Linda Mead, who's the administrative assistant at Olentangy Academy. They do all of the work on the ground to get summer school up and running, and I want to make sure I acknowledge them because most of what I'm sharing tonight is information that I get from them. So, our summer school program is designed to meet the needs of our students in the summer, and we have different needs. There's students who are looking for remediation and more support. We also have students who are looking to advance themselves in the curriculum and accelerate in the curriculum. So we try to do a little bit of both of those. And that really looks like two different experiences for students. There is the Apex, which is our online content provider and curriculum, which students work independently through. But then there's also the other component of online instruction, which are the classes that are designed by and facilitated by our teachers through Schoology. So you can see some of those up there. Our PE, our health, and our English Schoology classes are some of the most popular. So actually our courses that are designed by our teachers, a little bit more customized for kids here in Olentangy, those are definitely really popular. With Apex, one that I point out is we added financial literacy this year. That Apex course helps meet the new high school graduation requirement for personal finance or financial literacy, that half credit. We want to make sure we have an option for kids who may need that in the summer, so we went ahead and added that. As far as numbers go, I think in 2021 we had like 650, and last summer we had 701. That number has really hovered around there over the last 5 years. We feel like that is due to College Credit Plus. A lot of students who are looking to accelerate or advance in the curriculum are choosing to do college level work instead of the Apex courses. So we see that as just a trend that's going on in the district with College Credit Plus also. In terms of the dates of this, it begins on June 5th and ends on July 7th. The other thing to point out is another group to thank are those teachers who not only design those Schoology courses, but facilitate those in the summer. Without that staff willing to step up and do that work in the summer, we couldn't have these experiences for kids. And it's a really solid program. It's been around for a while, but I feel like each year we keep tweaking the offerings a little bit, and we end up with a little bit better program each year. So I will kick it. We can do questions at the end. I'll kick it over to Erica, who's going to talk a little bit about our summer enrichment.
So summer enrichment experience has been around for a little while. I think we started in 2016, so given all things considered, this is the 5th year of the program. This year it is June 5th through 15th. It will take place at Heights Middle School in Liberty Tree. Last year when I shared a little bit, our highest enrollment was at about 730 students. Last summer we had, 730 registrations. Last summer we had 1,006 registrations. I'm not sure that we were prepared for that many, and it got a little bit hairy with the pickup and drop off at times, but we had process in place, and it worked out well. Summer enrichment experience is a great time for teachers to highlight some of their passions and interests, and students are able to come alongside them in those passions and interests. We have, when registration opens next week, 46 different courses that we will offer. Of course, they won't all be available for every student at every grade level, just due to the type of course. Our popular ones tend to be nature skills, STEM and robotics, some service learning. We have Ninja Warrior is another really popular one that we've offered for several years. This year, in those 46, we have several new ideas along the fine arts, a couple of ceramics classes that we haven't had before, some humanities, some language for the younger students. This is a self-supporting program, so each course is $125, so students can register for an AM course and a PM course, each one costing $125. Like I said, this takes place at Hyatt's Middle School and Liberty Tree Elementary, so our rising first grade through fifth grade will be at Liberty Tree, 6th through 12th at Hyatt's. In addition to the courses and the teachers, we do have 2 administrative liaisons who act as the facilitators, oversee the programs in the buildings. This year, Kathy Boone is returning for another year as an administrative liaison. She liked it so well last year. And then Kimberly Vetter, who is currently a math specialist at Wyandotte Run, was the course instructor last year, is stepping up into the role of administrative liaison for this. I'm excited just to think about the new courses and the new possibilities for students this summer, so we'll see how enrollment goes. With that, I think Marty and his team will share a little bit more about their programs.
Good evening. I'm Marty Argenbright, Director of Pupil Services. In our department, we have several summer programs. Our assistant directors will share with you a little bit about our program. Stephanie Dabrico will talk about our English learner program and our extended school year program. Malika Jefferson will talk about our Summer Intervention Academy, and Jacqueline Roscoe will talk about our preschool program. So last year we had over 900 students participate in our summer programs. A lot of great things are happening, and with that, I will turn it over to Stephanie.
Hello. Thanks for having us again. I am the English Learner Program Supervisor for the district, so definitely have a leadership role with our summer program for English learners. This is a booming demographic here in our district, and we're excited to have a summer program. This is our second year, kind of in person with a format like this. So we have 2 sites, one elementary site at Oak Creek, one secondary site at Orange High School. We're offering a format of 3 weeks in June, Monday through Thursday in the morning. And we really target, we have about 1,500 English learner students across the district, but we really target about 300 of the 1,500 who are in need of the most significant intervention. So they are the newest to U.S. schools and just need that targeted intervention over the summer to really kind of keep them progressing forward. In addition to teachers who teach the students, we also have aides at the program, many of whom are multilingual themselves, to help support the students and teachers and communicate with families and transportation. You can see our top 3 languages as of last year that are represented in this population. We do have 2 administrative liaisons similar to the description that Erica was providing, and then wanted you to know that all of this program cost is fully funded by our Title III federal grant dollars. And something that didn't even make the slide that I wanted to add that's very exciting is we are formalizing a partnership with a local university. So we will have, so classroom teachers can get what's called an endorsement that's added to their teaching license to specialize in teaching English learners. And so we will have Olentangy teachers who are going through that endorsement program, basically student teaching in our EL summer program to help them meet the endorsement requirements. So it's also serving as a training opportunity for our teachers, because we will need more and more teachers in the future who have that endorsement. So I'm going to switch gears to the next slide. Thank you. So extended school year, so this is for students who are on IEPs. So again, this is a very small targeted percentage of students, about 500 students on IEPs between preschool through 12th grade. And this is an IEP team decision. The criteria for making that decision is for the team to consider a student's progress towards their IEP goals. So if there's data that shows that a student has regressed significantly due to kind of a break in instruction, the IEP team will, take that data and make a decision about summer instruction then for that student. So there's 2 weeks in June, 2 weeks in July, again, Monday through Thursday, kind of the morning block. Typically, this looks like students aren't there from 8 to 12. They're coming for like an hour, maybe once a week, twice a week, maybe 4 days a week. Again, very individualized based on their goals and what the team has determined are their needs. So it's more of that one-to-one small group instruction. We have preschool sites. Jacqueline will talk more about that. We have 2 elementary sites there at Arrowhead and Cider Ridge. We have 1 secondary site, Shanahan Middle School, for grades 6 to 12, and we also still offer a virtual option for our older students. You can see there, we have lots of teachers teaching, and then also 4 administrative liaisons for each site, and then 2 at Shanahan. So I'm going to turn it over to Malika.
Our Summer Intervention Academy program, we have 2 sites that we service students that would typically get services through our specially designed instruction in our learning centers, which we call SLCs. We typically support about 50 to 60 students in each sites. The sites are Heritage Elementary School and Olentangy High School. The dates are listed there. It's a 4-week program. We do provide services Monday through Thursday with some days, federal holidays that are observed. Instruction on the academics are for English and math, and then we also incorporate independent living skills for those students that surround the science and social studies curriculums. Within our program, we have peer models, and the services that are provided for students also incorporate our related services. So that would be speech pathologists on site. We also have nursing on site, and then we have a consultative services through OTs. Each of our sites has 1 liaison, so that's 2 administrative liaisons for the programs total. And I think that's about it.
I'm Jacqueline Roscoe. I'm the Assistant Director of Pupil Services with Preschool, and I'm going to close out our presentation on summer programming. So Preschool Summer Camp, as Stephanie indicated, we actually offer 2 different services, the traditional ESY model, and then some of our students who qualify for ESY, again, as an IEP team decision. Preschool Summer Camp can be offered as the model that best meets their needs, typically with a student who needs more social growth, play skills, and just that interactive pragmatic and language. For us, we serve about 60 to 75 students, and in our program, it's really mirroring our preschool school day. We're trying to create a very similar, consistent preschool, and ours is a play-based preschool throughout the school year, so that's what we also do in the summer. The biggest difference is we do not have our peer models. We do consider this a specialized camp, which we believe our parents really, really value because of the varying needs of their children with disabilities. We're really fortunate, again, like Vince said, that our staff steps up and we're able to basically create 8 classrooms, 4 at each site, that would have one of our dually licensed intervention specialists and gen ed preschool teachers, along with some of our preschool assistants. Like Stephanie said, we're actually partnering more with Delaware County's Career Center. We have a preschool location there, so some of their students will volunteer to be additional student support in the classroom. They actually support our students at Shanahan Preschool and the teachers as an observation opportunity for them to earn their certificate that lets them be a provider in a community preschool. So our program definitely supports a variety of needs, and parents pay a minimal cost of $100 per week. And I think our team is able to take any questions that the board might have.
Now's your chance, Kevin.
Yeah, for sure.
We know Dr. Davico.
So I'm thinking about the funding for the Title III. That's the only, we don't get funding for the other programs you all talked about? So it's, okay, so it's parents got to pay for it 100% themselves.
The extended school year program, that's an IEP team decision, so that is district funded. It's mandated as part of the federal law. We do get, federal special education dollars, but, they're not necessarily earmarked for the summer program. They obviously go to our big ticket staffing, specialized staffing costs over the whole year.
Does that federal money come with the hook of you have to do some sort of evaluation at the end, or they don't require that?
Not formally, no. What we look at mostly is student progress reports. IEPs, we're required to do quarterly progress reports. So when we make the decision, that's what we look at, who needs the summer instruction. We look at the data, the progress data, and then obviously after a student completes the summer instruction, we're looking at that data to ensure that, it's been effective and we've done what we set out to do.
I would only add that there are a lot of provisions that you have to check that you will assure the federal government and ODE that you're going to do to receive the money. And while the program itself may not necessarily get an annual audit, there is an annual desk audit and/or an annual self-survey and/or an annual every 3 years actual physical audit by the CCIP staff at ODE. This year, I believe, we're self-survey.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, this is just, the work they do is obviously a major factor in what's driving a lot of our enrollment, because we do this work better than most. I think if I started 8 years ago in this job, there was about 350, maybe 350 EL students. We have about 1,500 now. So, and preschool students and all of our students. So, great job.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, the current superintendent's report.
Wow. Well, thank you, and welcome, everybody. Great seeing everybody out, and always good. I did offer Dr. Lucas the opportunity if he wanted to go sit there for a while, and instead, he said he liked that view a lot better. As always, I get to open up. I do thank you, Bruce and Bill and Jeff, for great jobs. It's always good to hear those updates, and I know your special connection to the district is certainly gives us a little higher level of care in all that work, and Vince and his team and Marty and their team just are doing a great job in the summer programming, so thank you for the presentations. As always, I like to start off by highlighting a bunch of great things happening all throughout the district. We have a bunch of 4 students here that attend Olentangy High School, Liberty High School, Berlin High School, that competed in the state high school figure skating championships in Shaker Heights earlier this month. So they all placed very highly, first, second, and third in their division. So who knows, maybe they're future Olympians. So congratulations to Paulina and McKenna and Megan and Claire on a job well done. We don't have a formal figure skating team here in Olentangy, but it's always nice when people share these kind of accomplishments of our students to share them publicly here with the board. I don't know how many I went forward. We know the clicker is my greatest challenge. I want to give credit to our curriculum team. As always, they hosted our first ever all arts content specific professional development day at Liberty High School last Friday. It was a huge success for our teachers who work with music, visual arts and performing arts. They came together to work on content specific professional development. So I think they found that to be a very, very valuable day. And so thank you, Vince, for organizing that and delivering that high-quality professional development that's so important to our achievement. We've been highlighting a lot of work with Bridge Ed. This will be one of the things we'll be talking about tomorrow with our Business Advisory Council. We had 8 middle school teachers do an externship, and they went down to Wexner Medical Center and did an experiential learning activity, so they, with their goal of taking those workplace ideas back into their classroom. Again, I think tomorrow will be really impressive when we do it with the Business Advisory Council, so if you're available and want to attend, you're going to hear about a lot of great partnerships and opportunities that are happening with Bridge Ed. You know, Dr. Dabrico, you were able to attend the Model UN. If you remember years ago,
Dr. Wise as well.
Oh, and Dr. Wise as well, thank you, sorry. I just know we exchanged texts about it. So we used to participate as part of a Model United Nations program that was statewide, and there were some issues with that program, so we decided, you know, to bring it in-house. Dr. Fetty was really important in organizing that and getting it going, and our students really ran with it, and they just do a great job. So I want to congratulate our Model United Nations delegates that participated. I didn't get the number, but there were hundreds and hundreds of kids there all day Saturday.
300.
300? Yeah.
Into the evening, into Sunday.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a long weekend for him. So, well, Luke Woolard is an Orange student who does a lot of work with the Model UN, and he's a really impressive student. This one's pretty special to me. Steve Atkins was a student at Olentangy High School. The media did a special on him when he was a wrestler at Olentangy High School, and he was a student that was in one of our SLC programs. And his family had a tragedy, and the staff at OHS and Shanahan Middle School, because Steve's such a great kid, banded together and did some things to support his family. He's graduated, he's in the community. I can't get in and out of Kroger without getting a big bear hug from the kid. It makes my day. But unfortunately, his father passed away, and he came into a very small amount of money, and he decided what he was going to do with that money was take it and buy supplies for his teachers at Olentangy High School in Shanahan. And it was just he'd probably be embarrassed knowing I was sharing it, but it's just such a tremendous example of what great kids we have. All on his own, wanted to pay it forward, random act of kindness. So thank you, Steve. We had a visit from NASA at Heritage Elementary School. They do an outreach team, came in and spoke with every grade level there about the earth and outdoors and weather patterns. So it was great for Heritage to sponsor that program. As you know, our communications team's done a great job this year with our community engagement series. We've gotten really good feedback on that. Our next event is February 28th. Joe Swazi and the school resource officers and the members from Delaware County Sheriffs will be in here to talk about what happens with emergency at a school. And I know I've shared this with you, and I know we did have an incident at one of our elementary schools just recently. Thankfully, it was a false alarm, but a staff member thought they heard what might have been gunshots. It was actually balloons being popped in the gymnasium. Called 911, mobilized everybody in quick order. Building went into lockdown. The students and staff, school resource officers, Joe Swazi, Randy Wright, everybody put our emergency action plans into effect, and it couldn't have gone better. And thankfully, we got to I mean, we do a lot of drills, but everybody knows it's a drill when we're doing a drill. This was a drill that nobody knew was a drill, and it went really well. So as I texted you, every penny we're paying for all of our safety services. Joe Swazi and his team and the sheriffs, and I really, and I said to the guys afterwards in our after-action review to the school resource officers and the sheriffs, deputies that responded, every one of them got the call and ran towards the gunfire. Didn't hesitate, were there in minutes, and I just don't think sometimes we take that for granted. So I'm very appreciative of everybody that was there at that day, keeping our kids safe. On March 7th, we will be hosting a State of the Schools, as I said previously. Something new, we're going to have a school showcase, so there'll be, every single school will be having some kind of student program showcased as part of from 6 to 7, and we're going to do a presentation. I'm going to kind of lead it, but members of the leadership team are going to talk about their specific areas throughout the State of the Schools presentation, so we're looking forward to that on March 7th. Just have one highlighted item. Diane Langdon's been a longtime field service technician. She's mowed a lot of grass in this district, so she's retiring. I didn't catch it in my agenda prep, but we have a brand new first year First-year teacher, Lane Johnson, on the agenda, is going to be at Berlin Middle School, coming to us from Otterbein College and formerly at ODNR. So welcome, teaching science, right?
Yes, sir, 6th grade science.
Very good, well, welcome. Is this the first board meeting you've ever attended?
First in Olentangy.
Okay, this might be the last, that's all right. We won't take we won't take offense, don't worry. And then some important dates coming up, obviously our Business Advisory Council, our Classified Interview Day. HR team just did a great job doing a certified interview day for intervention specialists. Had, I think, 75 intervention specialists in here that we know we're going to have positions, so they did a great job with that, getting ahead of the game. As I said, the community engagement, State of the Schools, and our next board meeting. So with that, we'll take any questions you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Ray?
I actually have one quick one, if I may. With the State of the Schools, that 6 to 7 p.m. school showcase, is that like science fair style, like a walk around? What should we expect?
It is each school will have a table, and either students or staff will be there, so it will be a mix and mingle opportunity, and to just spend as much time with each school as you would like.
Perfect, thank you.
Mr. Rafe, I don't know what his job was, just the aide for Representative Edwards was an Olentangy grad as well.
Edwards, yep. And then there was a couple with Senator, I lost it.
Dolan?
Jordan.
Okay.
Senator Jordan's aide. When we go to the State House
Representative Jordan.
Excuse me, Representative Jordan, yes. When we go to the State House to meet with the reps and the senators, there's probably a dozen Olentangy grads down there working in the State House. So it's just great to see our kids. And Nick Bogus was aide to Representative Jay Edwards, who's the House Finance Chair. So it's a high-level position for him.
Good.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Jenkins, you have a treasurer's report?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. I wanted to call the board's attention to just a couple of pieces of legislation that are pretty critical for the district. In true spirit of good news, bad news, we'll start with good news. House Bill 33. So far, the Fair School Funding Formula is being touted as something that the Ohio legislature wants to continue to support. They're on record as saying that they'll increase the phasing fund in to 50% in the 23-24 school year, and just obviously 2/3 in the 24-25 school year. Where we came from, just know that we had about a 16.6% increase for the 21-22 school year, and this year just a shade over 33%, close to 34%, which has been very impactful for the district. It's made a world of difference. You know, we were as recently as fiscal 18 and 19, you know, getting by on $500 to $600 per pupil, and we're closer to $1,000 per pupil, and so we've got good momentum. Unfortunately, then we talk about House Bill 1. Right now, the proposal in House Bill 1 would be to eliminate the state reimbursing 10% of every property owner's property taxes and 2.5%, which is called the owner-occupied credit. A lot of homeowners may not realize that they only technically pay 87.5% of their tax bill. The remaining 12.5%, they still pay, but they pay it by virtue of the fact that state income taxes are used by the state of Ohio to subsidize or cover that 12.5% for all taxpayers. House Bill 1 is seeking to eliminate the 10% tax credit and to replace the 2.5% with a flat $125 credit. As a way to gauge the kind of shift that would create to our local taxpayers, I looked at our 21 settlement, which is obviously paid in calendar year 22, and that's about $19 to $20 million of taxes that would shift back onto the local taxpayers in Olentangy, and that's just the schools portion.
And that's just in Olentangy?
That's just the schools portion. That's correct. So, on the one hand, I think of the scripture, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. We would be giveth in House Bill 33, and then it just turns right around and goes away in House Bill 1.
The equivalent of about 4 mills we'd have to pass.
That's correct. So those two bills, for Olentangy's sake, pretty much completely offset each other. It should be noted, it's not like the funding in House Bill 1 causes us to flat out lose 19 to 20 million. It just shifts it right back onto local taxpayers. A little more disconcerting is that then the assessment percentage goes from 35 to 31%, 31.5%. While the law actually would require millage rates on voted levies to increase, that doesn't happen with inside mills. And then the other strategy that we have as a district that's been very, very powerful is we are able essentially to keep up with our facilities construction without increasing millage rates. If they take the assessment percentage to 31.5%, that's a game changer for that strategy as well.
Any insight as to the magic of 31.5? Seems like a very precise number.
Absolutely no idea. I don't know if it's somehow related to the flat tax. I mean, it's a percent off from the exact, well, I guess 1.25%. I don't know. And then the way the bill is written, it could actually drop below 31.5% depending on how fast inflation goes. It can just never go above the way the bill is proposed. And then the final piece of legislation that continues to come back, and unfortunately probably will continue to come back, is the backpack scholarship bill, which would essentially make practically any kid eligible for a $5,500 scholarship in grades K through 8 and $7,500 in grades 9 through 12.
Before you go on to the next slide, is it your opinion that the losses in HB1 will offset any gains and even be a net negative considered against 33?
Absolutely. It would take going to 100% funding under House Bill 33 for the losses to equal the gains. And so if we're only going to 50 and 2/3, it would be backwards. Yeah. Whatever we thought we were getting extra from the state would be completely wiped out.
And it's interesting, though, they put the cost inputs in based on 2018 data, which hurts us, and because salaries have risen and all those things. And then the local capacity inputs, income and value, have been updated to be current, which hurts us.
Yeah, it feels like a complete shift, and I don't know, I can't speak to what each representative is thinking, but it almost feels like the thinking is, okay, we'll increase school funding, but the way we're going to get there is to shift these following things back to the local community. As Mr. Rafe just pointed out, let's go ahead and use cost inputs from fiscal 18, but let's use income and value inputs that are current. I mean, that for our district would be a complete shift back on the local side.
Okay.
There's a long way to go, and a lot of folks will speak up about this, but really the environment right now, with a obviously very highly supermajority in the House, will be that legislation like this is almost certain to continue to come up, and my guess would be pieces of this are going to find their way into future legislation. I mean, that's not anything new.
To be clear, though, those offsets were not included in the governor's original.
Not that I'm aware of.
No. And we'd support the backpack bill if they would indeed give our students $5,500 K to 8 and $7,500 9 to 12, because out of our 23,000 students, I'm quite certain at least 20,000 would choose to go here.
Yep.
And if you do that math, we come out of the winter.
Yep. So the next slide, I'm just kind of transitioning
Compared
to
to
some,
900?
unless there are more questions, I'm sorry. Some really, really good news. Always proud of the support we get from the community. As you can see, we have several outstanding local entities that continue to provide support for our district. My action items, or our action items, I should say, they're not just mine, are on the next slide. We're going to approve the annual comprehensive financial report, the alternative tax budget, and that is for the fiscal year that begins at July 1. The board financials, and I guess I could ask if there's any questions on the board financials now. The meeting minutes from January 26th, the amended permanent appropriations, approval of the donations that you just saw, and something a little bit different tonight. Those first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullet points can be approved as a consent, but House Bill 126 requires the BOR filings to be their own separate entity or separate item. So there wasn't a mistake. When you get there, it's got to be its own.
Got it. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Jenkins? No, thank you. All right, we will now move into the public participation session. I think we've got some.
Yes, we have Kelly Livingston, 1916 Shell Run Drive, who wants to speak about diversity, equity, inclusion, and the diverse student experience.
Yes, my name is Kelly Livingston. As I look around here, I look at the wall, and I see words flourish here. I receive emails as a member of the Diversity Committee. But I wonder, what are we doing here in Olentangy? What are we doing to increase the hirings of diverse staff? What are we doing to train your staff? And what are we doing to create an inclusive environment for diverse students? I have a 7th grader at Olentangy Hyatt's Middle School. We enrolled him there in the fall of 2021. In the past 14 months, my son has been subjected to 3 unprovoked physical assaults. In all 3 incidents, I was told by the building administrator that my son was not the aggressor, that he in fact had acted in self-defense. In all 3 incidents where he acted in self-defense, he received a harsher penalty than the student who physically assaulted him. Most recently, 9 days ago, my son was sitting at the lunch table, eating his lunch. A white student came up to him and asked him if he could sit where he was sitting so that he could sit next to his friend. My son was eating. He was waiting for his friends to sit. My son said no. The kid knocked him off of his seat. When my son approached a teacher, one of your teachers, and told them what happened and asked for assistance, the teacher told them that there are no assigned seats here and offered to help him find another place to sit. While the teacher stood just a few feet away from the student continued to taunt my son. My son, I was told by the building administrator, then responded in self-defense. In this instance, as with the previous 2 instances, my son was punished more harshly than the student who assaulted him, despite the fact that as soon as the assault occurred, he approached a teacher and he made the teacher aware that he had just been assaulted and asked for help. I've raised concerns. I've raised concerns to the assistant principal. I've raised concerns to the principal. I've raised concerns to the assistant director for diversity and inclusion for the district. I've raised concerns to the supervisor of principals. I've raised concerns to the superintendent. The discriminatory treatment of my son has continued. I know that my experience in Olentangy as a parent of a student of color is not unique. My husband and I have made the difficult decision after sending 3 kids to school through Olentangy, 3 kids who, within the past 15 months, have graduated from college and are now working for top firms as a result of the education that they received at Olentangy. We've made the difficult decision to withdraw our son from this district because we no longer feel that after less than 2 years at Olentangy Hyatt's Middle School that he can safely receive an education in this district. So I ask, it's time for Olentangy to stop sending emails that talk about, let's get together and talk about diversity, let's get together and talk about our experiences, let's talk about, having a diverse cafe. And it's time for us to take action. I've watched the news this week. I've seen and heard about what's happened in Mexley. The people in that area are mad. They're fed up. They're ready to take action. I ask, what is Olentangy going to do? It's time to increase the diversity in hiring. It's time to provide training to your staff. It's time to enforce district policies with respect to disciplinary actions across the board. It's time to hold your staff accountable when they fail to comply with Title VI, which is the law, and your own board policy, which are regularly and flagrantly disregarded at will. I'm a mother, right? When my son hurts, I hurt. I wonder, I ask, I deplore you, why is my son not entitled to receive the same education that anybody else's child is entitled to receive in this district without fear of being assaulted or called slurs, which has also happened within the past several months? What makes him any different? What are we going to do differently? I will move on from here because, again, we've already started steps to withdraw him from this district because we just don't feel that he's safe here anymore. But I would like to leave the district safe for the next family of color that comes along. I ask for Olentangy to take action. Don't talk about it, be about it.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have Adam Flory, 28 Warner Lane, wants to speak about the resolution on property taxes.
Guess he changed his mind. That's it?
Yep.
All right. All right, we'll move on to our first discussion item. It's the Olentangy Academy expansion. Mr. Gordon?
Thank you. Here tonight, as you mentioned, talk about the Olentangy Academy expansion, which is our ACT, is the expansion of the building to accommodate our ACT program, to better accommodate. The ACT program, the Academy for Community Transition, it supports the transition of students with disabilities to work and life after their social graduation from high school. Public schools are legally required to do that, and this is a program that, as a district, we're very proud of. It has a reputation as a premier program in our state, so we are working to accommodate this program and continue to meet the needs as the program grows. Currently, we have three classrooms. We occupy 3 classrooms at the Academy building. Next year, we're going to add a classroom at Olentangy High School. It's not the most ideal to not have them all together, but we did find that we could accommodate some space there. So this Academy expansion would help us bring those students back to one location. The project, Mr. Fetty had talked about it at a previous board meeting. We've talked about it with our facilities committee a couple of times. They have approved it. We talked about it in June of 2022 and touched base on it again in January of 2023. Our current status is on the board agenda tonight is to approve the contract of Mr. Runyon, Fanning Howey, to do the design. Right now, we've just gone through schematic design phase up to this point. And based on the schematic design, we would add 12,880 square feet to it. That would add 7 traditional classrooms to that building, with 1 large multi-purpose classroom that could be used for multiple things, one of which is physical activities for those students and any other programs that the Academy building wanted to expand in there based on the things that they do there with the STEM program. The other big part of that we do struggle with at the Academy building is the restrooms. Some of these students have some special needs with the restrooms, and we currently share restrooms with the other students in the Academy. And so sometimes when we're using that restroom for some of our ACT program, other students have to wait. And this expansion, as I'll show you here, would give us, and I'll jump back, see on the far right there, and I jumped to one that's bigger. The restrooms give us bigger space for some shower accommodations and more room to work with the students. We would add restrooms to the facility, double the restroom capacity, and make those larger spaces for those students to be able to accommodate their needs. And I'll come back to these. I'll jump back here, talk about one of the other things that this does. We do the expansion. We have been looking at updating the HVAC in the Academy building as it stands. That's older. It was contractor grade mechanicals when they were put in. They're at the end of life. So we've been looking at a project to update those, which is significant. The cost estimate we got was over $500,000 to do that. If we move forward with this Academy expansion, by increasing the size of the mechanicals in the expansion, we'd be able to then tie that back in and not have to do a complete upgrade to the HVAC of the current facility. So this actually, some of these costs would help us defer cost on the other project of updating the mechanicals in that Academy building. The estimated construction cost, as Mr. Runyon and Mr. O'Sullivan talked about earlier, the supply chain issues, the inflation rates, all of those things that we've been seeing as we've gone through our projects are here as well. So the cost of the building is estimated $4.3 million. We would use remaining bond funds from previous bond projects, mostly building projects. The cost that we're estimating for this project would be $340 per square foot. To give you an idea of how we came up with this and working with the Facilities Committee and looking at our projects was Elementary School 17 that we just bid out last fall was $300 a square foot. Recent OFCC projects back from last fall were coming in about $337 a square foot. This is a smaller building, so some of your overheads divided by less square footage, but we're going to work to bring it in at under $300 or at or under $340 a square foot. So again, the full size of the building, you can see what the 12,800 square feet does. On the left side is the existing Academy building. To the right, the additional classrooms. First floor, you can see on the left is that mechanical room. That mechanical room is a little bit bigger than you'd normally see in an expansion of this size, but again, that's to help us accommodate some of the bigger mechanical equipment that we would put in to help cool and heat the whole building. Second floor, again, three large classrooms or three traditional classrooms and one larger classroom that could be divided if we needed more space, but we right now schematically have left that open to be able to do multiple things in that space. And that was the quick part of it. So I know I went fast. Are there any questions I can answer on this?
Questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I mean, it's essentially, when we looked at this 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
2 years ago, yeah.
2 years ago, I think the price
in.
was about $2.5 million, roughly $2.5 million. So, and we put it off, and rightfully so at the time, but both STEM and ACT continue to be very, very successful programs that continue to grow that we can't house. So either I think we're almost kind of at a decision point of either we have to shut the programs down or head down this path.
Yeah. Or add another facility.
Yeah.
Move them into one of our high schools or some other space that's available, which would mean moving them as space as the enrollment projections shift in those buildings that constantly move. So this allows us to not have to do that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, our next discussion item is the TIF resolution. We've got Erica Fowle from Orange Township. She's the Township Trustee, and Michelle Bonney, the Orange Township Administrator. Welcome.
Thank you. As Mr. O'Brien said, I'm Erica Faust. I'm one of the Orange Township Trustees. I have Michelle Bonney, our Administrator, with us tonight. Normally, Michelle would be giving the presentation, but she's feeling under the weather, so I get to do that. And this has been a collaborative effort between Michelle and our Director of Operations, Silas Bowers, and all three of us trustees. So we're coming as a group. First off, I wanted to thank Mr. Rafe and Mr. Jenkins for their time, and the school board members for their time in meeting with us on several occasions that led to what we are sharing tonight. Okay, Orange Township, with the help of Schottenstein Real Estate Group and Olentangy Schools, has been preparing a TIF for over a year now. We are excited to be here tonight in hopes of seeking your support and approval to move forward with a 15-year, 75% TIF. This TIF will be used for infrastructure projects that we believe will impact the traffic and safety of the school district. The TIF is located at the southeast corner of US 23 and Shanahan Roads in a development called Orange Summit, which consists of 400 apartments. 92% of the units will be 1 or 2 bedrooms. This project also includes extending Rail Timber Way all the way up to Shanahan Road. This road extension is a much-needed connection that is noted on the county's thoroughfare plan. The 15-year, 75% TIF is estimated to generate approximately $24 million. Using the school district's student ratio calculations, worst-case scenario, this development might bring up to 76 students. There will be a surplus of $6.4 million to the school district after covering the cost of the students who could be expected to come from this development. As we know with TIFs, the district is not giving up any current tax revenue. In the 15-year, 75% TIF proposed, funds will actually be directed to the school district for 2 projects specifically for Shanahan Middle. This one you see here is a sanitary sewer extension, and then this one is an entrance modification at Shanahan Road, so entrance improvements for the school. TIFs are an economic tool to allocate revenue directly into infrastructure projects that not only impact the school district, but the community as a whole. This TIF will fund various infrastructure projects, including the widening of Bale Canyon and Shanahan Roads. We all know that Bale Canyon is in need of improvements both for traffic and safety reasons. Phase 1 will be under construction this summer. Phases 2 and 3 will follow shortly after, thanks to this TIF. I'm sure the commuters and bus drivers for Freedom Trail Elementary will appreciate a wider and safer road. As far as Shanahan Road widening goes, that will be the township's next big road project. It'll be a joint effort with Berlin Township to complete this project. Shanahan Middle, Heritage Elementary, and Olentangy High School are all off of Shanahan. We also plan on using TIF funds for our trail connections. There will be multi-use trails on both Bale Canyon and Shanahan Roads with these road widening projects. Also, the township is currently working on an active transportation plan that will help us to identify the missing links in our trail network within the township. By definition, active transportation is human-powered types of transportation such as bicycling, walking, rollerblading, that kind of thing. Olentangy Schools has approved a handful of TIFs within Orange Township. Those TIFs were all driven by the county, who we consider to be great partners. However, we kindly ask you to approve our first township-driven TIF that can address safety in Orange Township through our infrastructure projects that will benefit our nearby schools and the overall community. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
All right, thank you. I know that, we spent a fair amount of time on this, and I do think it's really a nice opportunity to have kind of a win-win between Orange Township and Olentangy. Thanks for bringing it to us. Any questions for Eric and Michelle?
I'll let everybody else go first.
I think you're up.
Looking at you.
Just want to emphasize the win-win. The number one job that we have in our district is to keep our kids safe every day. 400 units right next to all 3 of those schools. All 3 of those schools put together would be a sizable school district if it was just them. So I so much appreciate the idea that there's going to be safe trails, and I understand as much as practical. Some places it just isn't feasible, but that's the emphasis. So kids, they're not moving here for the traffic. They're not moving here as much as we love our they're moving here because our schools are the premier schools in the state. So I appreciate that they can eventually, if that gets redistricted and all that, they can go to the school across the street from where they live, and your emphasis on safety. And that's the win-win part. What's the timeline for these roads? How long does this take? And do you work, so two-part, what's the timeline, and do you work with them to ensure that they are putting the emphasis on the trails where practical?
Mm-hmm. So we met with the engineer's office and Berlin Township specifically about Shanahan Road about a week and a half ago, just to make sure we were all on the same page. So that one specifically, the path will be on our side of that road. Shanahan is half. Orange, half Berlin. So that'll be on the orange side of the road, which is the same side as that particular community. There will be a number of communities eventually on the north side, but there'll be a crossing, and they'll be able to, ride their bikes down to the school complex. That is the second project. The first project is Bill Canyon. So like we said, this summer is when we will have traffic shut down for Phase 1, which is Freedom Trail going to, it's the condo community that where Mr. Sargent, the principal, lives. It's right there. So that's the first chunk. It's about 0.58 miles. Phase...
It's 1A.
Yeah, 1A on the plan. So 1B is the second phase, which will come from East Powell going north, and then the third phase goes that middle chunk in the middle. So 2023 is 1A, 2024 is 1B, 2025 is 1C. If we end up deciding to bond some of this, we could do 2 and 3 together and just have it all messed up at one time and go from there.
So where does that put, I know Shanahan is number 2
It's
on your...
after that.
So do you anticipate the apartments being done before the road is widened and the trails are in?
We do, yes. I think that they plan on doing a continuous phase. I think they're starting this summer. My guess is, I think it takes about 18 months to complete their development. We're hoping to start the project by then, but I can't guarantee the project will be done when the development's done.
And when we met with them, they were just starting design, like right now, they're doing surveys and that kind of stuff, the engineer that's in charge of the project.
You mean for the apartments or the
For
roads?
the road.
Okay.
For the road. Our understanding is that once, assuming this gets approved, the developer is ready to go to start the projects, which is a 18 to 24-month completion process.
And the way it works is that the apartments have to be built so that they can start generating the tax revenue to fund the TIF. Otherwise, if the township then doesn't want to, they could bond against that future revenue, because that's virtually guaranteed, but that will take some of the proceeds of the TIF away, and you don't have as much to do as many projects. So it's whatever the strategy that's chosen to use. Obviously, we'd always want sooner rather than later. The faster they get them built, the faster the TIF starts getting funded. With the 2 projects we have, they're about $650,000. We're discussing whether or not we want to wait till the TIF has the money to pay to do that, or do we want to, I think it'd be more prudent for us to go ahead and do those projects with our current dollars, get them done, and then have the TIF pay us back in the future, because that's what the agreement says we can do.
Gives you the option.
Right.
Now, Brown Timber Way will be completed with the development, which is part of the county's thoroughfare plan, and hopefully, we think would help alleviate some traffic that way as well.
Yeah, that Rail Timber Way is very important for us, because it'll take people off our access road traveling between, because there's just random people that cut from Shanahan to get to Kroger, and
it's not a road, it's an access road.
It's our road. Yeah.
Right.
And that puts additional wear and tear and maintenance and asphalt repair.
I appreciate your hard work on this.
Thank you for working with us. We appreciate it.
Anything else? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so the next discussion of the superintendent search process, we've got Dr. Wade Lucas here from the ESC of Central Ohio. By way of background, Dr. Lucas is the former superintendent at Green Local at Coshocton. He was at Olentangy from 2008 to 2015. He then retired from Olentangy schools and then started working at Meta Solutions for a period of time, and now with ESCC, he's been interim superintendent in Dublin, Whitehall. Did I miss a couple?
Hilliard.
Yes. So somewhat a much sought-after resource for interim superintendents, but certainly one that's seasoned in what it takes to be successful in the role. So with that, I will turn it over to you to let us know and talk about the search process and timing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to everyone this evening. It's great to see some familiar faces. Before I get into any of this, I have to say congratulations to Mr. Rafe. I can remember, and I'm sure he can too, the first time he and I met. In fact, I think you were over at Liberty High School in your office, and from there, things just got better, and I've been very, from a distance watching this thing take place, because like Mr. O'Sullivan and Mr. Runyon, I chose to stay here because I knew the quality of the staff, I knew the quality of the individuals that lead from the administrative standpoint, so I wanted my kids here, and I have a senior now. Mr. Rafe and I have talked sometimes about they're going out together. And I would very much be remiss if I didn't say thank you for the job well done for 8 years. He and I had that conversations about that 8 years, and sometimes, as I tell many people, sometimes Olentangy feels like dog years. So it's more like 56 years, but that's okay. That's okay, because this is a very, very different place. And I say that in a good way, and it's a very, very challenging place, and not many know what really takes place here. So, great job.
Thanks, Coach.
You will be missed, and it's just good to walk in, and see all these familiar faces. And I will say again, I'll emphasize, I had the choice to go anywhere when I left Olentangy, anywhere. And I choose to be here. Do you have challenges? Absolutely. You've got 22,000 students. Fourth largest in the state. Many, many challenges, but it's a great place to be. With that said and done, as we move, Mr. Rafe into lame duck status, sometimes we need to start talking about what does it look like now for the future. And at the ESC, obviously, part of our support services would be, doing searches, both superintendent and treasurer searches. And we feel very fortunate in the fact that we are here this evening. And when I say we, I'm talking for Dr. Goodney and Dr. Good and others at the ESC that will assist in these searches, but we feel very fortunate in that fact. So I'm going to quickly, as Kevin and I discussed, and he said, you don't do anything in 15 minutes. He said, you've got 15 minutes, but he remembered, right? Because when I get a clicker in my hand and a microphone, I like to go on. But I'm going to make sure this is 15 minutes. If it isn't, you can...
You just need to decide, is this your first or last 15 minutes?
Correct.
He never
All right,
counts the part at the beginning.
Yeah, the beginning doesn't, it starts now. All right, so first and foremost, just a little bit of the protocol and who's involved. I'm involved, Dr. Dan Good's involved. You know Dan, he was superintendent over at Westerville, he was superintendent at Columbus Public. He's with us at the ESC. Usually he and I, go together when we do superintendent searches and/or treasurer searches. We also have background in social media checks, Joe White's. We have Lori Dre, who's our Director of Technology. They do things like, check Facebook postings, check any and all social media postings, a big thing in today's world. And then we ask you as a district to designate your representative in that process. That's usually your communications department. And, I've already talked to Krista before the meeting started, so she has an idea that's coming her way. And she and her group would work hand in hand with Joe White's at the ESC. Next, we talk a little bit about timeline, probably the most important slide and the one you want to know the most about. So just to give you a quick update, process outline, the first thing we will do is survey community and start talking about things like qualities that you want in your next leader. Those would be qualities like, human resources, finance, facilities, vision, curriculum, so on and so forth. So we would send that survey out. That usually takes about 10 days, and then you get into the position announcement. And in that position announcement, it kind of talks about, what are you looking for? What does the person that's taking over as the superintendent of Olentangy, what are you looking for from a quality standpoint and the attributes that they bring to the table? The next thing, you go through an application window. Usually, you put the announcement out there for roughly 30 days. Next, you go through the screening, and that would be done not only by the ESC from an application standpoint, but that's also when individuals like Lori Dre would start looking at potential candidates and what they're posting in their social media and what they have posted in the past. The next thing that we do from a timeline standpoint, and usually that's about roughly a week, is the due diligence. When I say due diligence, you need to know everyone does due diligence. More importantly, when we start zeroing in on individuals that we're going to bring before you, we do due diligence such as making trips to where they currently are, or calling individuals that aren't on their reference pages. The one benefit that you have with both Dr. Good and myself being old is the fact that we know just about everybody, not only in the state, but in the surrounding areas. And if we don't know them, you've met Mr. Varda, our CFO. He knows everybody else, believe me. So we know who to ask, where to go to ask those questions about the individual that you would want to be bringing here. And then the next step would be starting that interview process, and I would foresee that starting somewhere in the neighborhood of mid-April. I think our timeline or our final choosing date would be somewhere around graduation. I believe if I put this in my calendar right, that's May 21st.
Yes.
At 9:00 a.m.?
Absolutely.
At least for me.
For me too.
There you go. So I definitely know when that is. So we would somewhat start that and work our way back. Now, all that being said, I'm giving you a typical search timeline. If you want to take more time, you're more than welcome to do that. If you want to take less time, you're more than welcome. We have conducted expedited searches. We have conducted targeted searches. We have conducted what we call the traditional search, which is usually somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5 months or so that you'd be winding up with a selection sometime near the end of May. Other part of that outline would be the negotiation of the contract, of which we will have these conversations going through this entire process, and you would have our announcement. Our goal is to always have a contract at the meeting that the individual is hired. Does that always happen? No, it doesn't always happen. Our hope is that that happens, though. And then last but not least, start date, which I'm assuming is going to be August 1. Correct?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay.
We'd want a transition period and overlap so that
Yes.
things transition properly.
Okay. That sounds good. Board of Education profile for the superintendent, I just want to talk briefly about that. We need to have a conversation over the next 2 weeks or so about the extent of stakeholder input. Who, the meetings, what type. For example, we've done focus groups with certain stakeholders. We always do a survey, and we have also conducted interviews where the community is involved. So we'll do just about anything. I will say to you, the more you do in that regard, the longer it takes. And I'm not downplaying that at all, but you just need to know that the more you involve in the interview process, the longer it takes. Last but not least, we talk a little bit about candidate recruitment. That goes on just about anywhere in the country. By that I mean we will continue to get calls. This is a great job. We're going to get phone calls, obviously, and we'll probably put out phone calls ourselves. But we'll talk more about that as that comes clearer into view. Also, I bring this up again, internal candidates, we have this conversation with every district that we serve. What do you as a board want to do about internal candidates? Do you have internal candidates? How many internal candidates do you have? That's a conversation that we will have. I've conducted searches, for example, that some internal candidates were getting interviews as nothing more than a courtesy interview. And how do you handle that as far as, do they know coming in, this is more, we see you as a potential future star, but we want to know more about you, and we're going to use this opportunity to get to know you better. Those would be something like the an internal consideration. So we'll talk more and more about that as we go on through this. Communication strategy, it has to be pretty plain and simple. There's a chain of command. The Board of Education, that's through the board president, and designated administrative staff. So usually it's a situation when communication takes place, it goes from me to Kevin to probably Krista, and if it comes the other way, it goes from Krista to Kevin to me. That's usually the way it works. Role of Olentangy Schools Communications Official, we've already talked a little bit about that. Just so you know, we will post this opening through Ohio School Boards, OSBA, BASA, which is the Superintendent's Membership Association in the state. We also go nationwide with AASA, American Association of School Administrators. We feel we have a very good in there due to the fact that Paul Imhoff, who had just retired as the superintendent of Upper Arlington, was the president of AASA. So he keeps everyone in Central Ohio up to date with not only who is here in Central Ohio, but who the rising stars are out there. When I say out there, I mean other states. So we are also very much involved with what's called the Midwest Suburban Superintendents Association, which is 7 states, and they have 2 conferences per year, of which Paul Imhoff is very, very high up in those organizations too. So they will know that we're looking. Statewide email to the state of Ohio superintendents. Every superintendent, sitting superintendent in Ohio will get an email, and the ESC of Central Ohio website, which feeds not only all the other ESCs, of which I believe there are 51 now, but it also serves the IT sites. IT sites, by the way, would be like Meta. That's an IT site. Once upon a time, I think there were 42. I'm not sure how many of those there are now, but they're out there also. So the word will get out, obviously, quickly. Pitfalls, just very quickly. I've experienced some of these, so I'll throw them out there. Pitfalls, mixed messages. Not only from 2 candidates to other candidates, but out there doing your own thing on a mixed message, okay? Board discussing searches with community and staff. By no means does that mean you can't talk about this to anybody, because people are very interested and will be very interested, and they'll want to know from you, their elected official, where are you in the search? The only thing we talk about when we're talking about discussing searches is we don't say, boy, such and such, had a great interview. We're going to bring that person in. It's very general terms. Confidentiality is a very, very important piece to keep in mind throughout. Public pressure, you're going to hear it. You already hear it. I don't have to tell you anything you don't know. You're going to get public pressure. Media pressure. Everybody wants to know, and everybody wants to be the first to know. Contact by applicants, that's a definite no-no. Anything coming towards you from an applicant or potential applicant should go to Mr. O'Brien, who in turn should bring it, to me. And when that happens, I usually call that candidate and say, okay, we're going to run through this process the correct way. So we're going to start this all over again. Last but not least, I would caution you, email, texting. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Seems like we continue to have this conversation throughout. Just know that email and texting, that's all public record. And we want to make sure we keep that to a very, very limited. When we talk about these things, usually it's pick up the phone and call, he and I, and then disperse it throughout. Those are some of the pitfalls. Last but not least, I believe contract negotiation, clarification of the ESC and board president's role. Usually through this process, I slowly transition from being that liaison between the board and whomever into more of a, I suggest to you, obviously, as a board, you have legal counsel, which they always do, boards always do. We also oftentimes suggest, and most of the time BASA even reinforces this, that the person you're going to be negotiating with will have a legal representative also. That's how that works, so that we work our way through, so that you can say things to each other without actually saying things to each other. Attorneys always put it in a nicer way, right? Or at least they can say things we can't. That's 100% true, right? Salary range, benefits, you have the salary surveys, or if you don't, you will have the salary surveys. We do those every year and make them available, so you will have that. And your legal counsel is still Pat?
To be determined.
Okay, to be determined. Last but not least, that's my contact information. I kept it, I don't know how that ended up so small. I wanted to make sure you didn't have my phone number, right? Good job, Krista. I like the way you work. If you need a magnifying glass to see my contact information, we'll get that for you, but we'll make sure you have it, of course. That was good. Questions from the board?
And again, we're gonna go into executive session and get into more specifics, but if there are general questions on the process, please feel free.
One thing, thank you so much for that presentation.
Yes.
And I appreciate the positive words toward lawyers. It's rare. One thing that you touched on, and I think is important, is this process is going to involve community involvement.
Yes.
It's essential that we are listening to and are thoughtful about what our community has to say. Obviously, we are a massive community, and not everyone can be involved. But I think it's going to be important that we, have some abilities to do that, and also that people have the ability to get out and share their thoughts to us. I completely agree that, community members, that will ask us questions about this. We've already gotten questions about this where it is, we're not going to tell you exactly what is happening at this point. But every community member should feel free to reach out with their thoughts about this. It's really important that we get those. So I just want to continue to urge people to feel free to share your thoughts with us.
Yes, and I think that's a great point. I will conduct focus groups, at least I usually conduct focus groups. I would say to you, you're actually conducting many, M-I-N-I, instead of M-A-N-Y, many focus groups every time an individual approaches you about, we need, fill in the blank. This is what we need. I will encourage you to take notes on that, because those are extremely valuable, that not only you'll find will reinforce what that community survey says, but also will allow you to get in better touch with your constituents. So, great point. Other questions?
Nope. All right, thank you very much.
It's great to be back. It's good to see everyone, and I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, we will now start with the action items. I'll start with the board action item. I'd entertain a motion to approve board action item A, which is to recommend the approval of the TIF resolution, waiver of statutory timelines, and authorization of school compensation agreement that we just discussed. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Could I have a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, please call the roll, Mr. Jenkins.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Dr. Wise?
Yes.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Jenkins, you want to present the treasurer action items, please?
Item A is the annual comprehensive financial report. Item B is the alternative tax budget. Item C would be January 2023 board financials. Item D, the board meeting minutes from January 26th. Item E, the amended appropriations for the current fiscal year. And item F is the approval of donations. So G would be asking you to approve A through F as one consent item.
Okay. So with that, could I have a motion to approve treasurer action items A through F, please?
So move.
Second? Okay, here, first and second. Any discussion on items A through F? All right, seeing none. Mr. Jenkins, please call the roll.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Dr. Wise? Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
And then item H would be a separate item, and it is the approval of 26 different BOR filings that we're filing with the Delaware County Board of Revision.
And again, these are all commercial only, no residential.
That is correct.
Thank you. All right, could I have a motion to approve treasurer action item H?
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Dr. Wise?
Yes.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes. Mr. Rafe, would you please present the superintendent action items?
Yes, sir. I'd like to present superintendent action items A through E for approval.
All right, could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on superintendent action items A through E? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Dr. Wise?
Yes.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes. Do we have one more superintendent action item?
It's just a transposition.
F was the
Okay. Then we're good.
recommendation.
We're done.
Yes.
I will now entertain a motion to enter executive session as permitted by the Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22 G1, to consider the employment of a public employee. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. So the only discussion is we will only return to adjourn. There'll be no action item, no actions or votes taken after the executive session. With that, Mr. Jenkins, please call the roll.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Dr. Wise?
Yes.
All right, thank you. We're going to Liberty Room. Mark? All right, it is 9:50. I will call the meeting back to order, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Please.
Second.
Hold on. I have to write this down.
Keep up.
All right, any discussion on the motion to adjourn? No? I'll call the roll. I'm supposed to go with Dr. Taberkow?
Yes.
Yes. Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Dr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien, yes. It's unanimous. So we adjourned at 9:50.